I change my brain? Am I just a victim to who I am? I'm your host, Steve Sisler. Stay tuned for another episode of Behavioral Insights.
Overvaluing and undervaluing. It's known as transposition composition. Which one are you? Next on Behavioral Insights. Excellent. Thanks for tuning in today to episode, what episode is it? It's episode 14. We're talking about over and under valuation. So I'm going to get right to it. And the reason why I'm talking about this today is because a debrief I had today really sparked my mind on this. And when that happens, it becomes a podcast episode. So lucky you. What I want to focus on today is a particular part of axiology. Now, I don't expect you to understand what that means and all that, and don't worry about it if you don't. But axiology is the science of value. It's how we perceive the world, the things in the world, the people in the world, and what we believe should be when it comes to the rules that the world is supposed to be living by. That's the outer world part of axiology. There's also an inner world part of axiology, which is all about valuing yourself, valuing who you are, valuing what you do, and valuing where you're going in the world. And that has other things that those tentacles, we'll call them, move into some other areas. Everything from how you dress, are you going to be disheveled? There's a lot in there, but I'm not going to break it down so fine that I drive you crazy. I'm just going to touch on some specific points here because I had a very, very, very interesting debriefing today. And I want to go over some of that. All right, so I just need you to listen and pay attention. So if you're being distracted, you may want to shut this off. But if you're in a position to listen, or maybe you can move into a better position later to listen, sitting by the pool or something like that, laying back, closing your eyes with a mint julep, how's that? To hear what I'm about to say. So when it comes to people, all right, we're going to talk about people right now. And this is the intrinsic portion of the world section in the axiological report, or the scores that we're looking for when people do this. So this is known as empathy. So intrinsic value is all about empathy. It's valuing people. And it's important that you understand that intrinsic valuation is really about incomparables. Like, we cannot compare a person to a football or a car. I mean, you've heard me say this before. Should I get rid of the baby, or should I get rid of my old junker over there in the driveway? Nobody says, get rid of the baby. We typically don't act that way. And if you do act that way, we've got some bigger fish we need to be frying. But 96% of people are not doing that, okay? All right, so think about this. Now, there's a valuation system that we're measuring when it comes to these things. So I want to talk about composition for a minute, okay? So when compositions are all the good things, all right? I'm going to make it simple. Composition are good things, transposition, bad things, okay? when you take an HVP assessment, you're rating statements. One of those statements is a good meal. All right, that's one of a good meal. When you think of a good meal, do you think that's positive, or do you think that's negative? What else would one of those words look like? How about this one? A madman. All right, that's one of the words, a madman. Do you think when you see that word, does that ring positive to you, or does that ring negative to you? What's another word? How about this one? A devoted scientist. All right, a devoted scientist. Do you see that as positive, or do you see that as negative? How about this one? A baby. A baby. Do you see that as positive, or do you see that as negative? All right. How about slavery? Just the word slavery. What does that sound like to you? All right. So things like this. What about torture a person in a concentration camp? All right. Is that negative to you? Is that positive? What do you feel when you hear that? Do you get excited, or do you get angry? Do you feel hurt for that person? You know, you have to just thinking about these things. So we're just taking human terms, phrases, and we're assigning a positive or a negative value to these words. All right. We're also in axiology, we're measuring other things like a traffic fine. All right. A fine, positive or negative. Do you think a fine is a good thing? Do you feel like a fine is a bad thing? See, axiology is about good and bad and how you see or what your concept of good and bad looks like. We're measuring that, all right? It's important. So when all these things are measured, the next thing you do is you have to determine, well, how good or how bad is it? So let's say you thought a warm meal was a positive thing. To you, that's a good thing. Let's say a baby's a good thing to you. Let's say a devoted scientist feels like a good thing to you. Now, out of a warm meal or a good meal, a devoted scientist, and a baby, which one's the best out of those three? You might think a devoted scientist is much better than a baby because devoted scientist might come up with a cure for cancer. Well, the baby's not coming up with any cures lately. So whatever your reasoning, you're thinking through words and your brain is processing these words. And you're determining not only what the value of these terms are, but are they good or bad as well? So that's really what's happening in axiology. And so this is going to determine how you view the world, how you view people. And then there's a whole self section, which right now I'm not going to get into that one. And maybe we'll make that a podcast. You can let me know in the comments if that's what you want. But today, this is what I'm talking about. Now, I've got my screen up here, and I've got my algorithm open, and I got all kinds of crazy numbers in here. And I'm looking at this. So we just had a person take this. And so I want to look at their empathy. So what do I see in their empathy? So I'm looking at their overvaluation. And what I've got here is the number 2. All right. So it's not a 0, it's a 2. A 0, you can see 0 it's like 50-50. All right. A 2 is positive by 2 points. It's 2 points positive. So, and this is in the composition column. All right. So what is composition? It's good things, right? So when they look at people, they are overvaluing what they believe is good about the person. They're overvaluing what they believe is good about the person. All right, what else is happening? Let's look at the undervaluing. So when compositions are undervalued, then the individual doing the valuation has a negative focus, or they start taking distance from that dimension, which could reflect certain things. It could reflect fear, a lack of knowledge, resistance to the person, or maybe just a simple lack of interest when it comes to, that. So there's a 1 in the undervaluation. So this is stronger with overvaluation because it's a higher number. All right. Now I want to look at the transposition section. Okay. Transpositions are really value combinations of value objects. All right. And it's about depreciating a value object. In this case, the value object is people or a person. This person has a 3. Okay. So they're overvaluing what is wrong or the potential negatives in people. Okay? They're overvaluing the potential negatives in people. So what does that mean? It means they're paying more attention to what is missing or wrong in the person. Okay? Now, their level of clarity, all right? So when I say the level of clarity, we're talking about how clearly do people see? How clearly do they perceive, other people? How clearly do they see a person's uniqueness? Okay? So we're measuring really 2 aspects of a person's thinking here. We're measuring clarity or correctness. All right. Let me shut my phone off here. That's getting loud. So they're coming in as a 7. What does that mean? It means they have razor sharp or very good clarity. Very, very good clarity. And so when they look at people, they know what these people are feeling. They can probably read their emotions on their face. Things like that. So they got a very, very clear sense of people. All right. What we call this is keenly perceptive. All right. So this person's keenly perceptive. And they're coming in 71% positive and 29% negative. All right. So they're really focusing on the positives of people, okay? But they're overvaluing some of the negative traits. Now, why would they do that if they're positive about people? Aha! I'm glad you asked. So what they're doing is, when they're looking at people, they're checking to see what could be missing because they don't want to be hurt by a person. So they're extra sensitive to people. They see people as better than they actually are because they're overvaluing them within the composition set. So people to them are better than they might actually be. Okay? So they're only, overvaluing some negatives. It means they're paying attention to both the positives and the negatives, but it's likely so that they don't get hurt, not because they don't like people and they're just looking for what's wrong with people. That's not it at all. They are keenly perceptive. They do care about people. And they can easily get what we call swallowed by people. So when we get swallowed by people, we are outer directed more than we're inner directed. And therefore, we have a heavier reliance on how that person is going to treat us than we have on a reliance on how I'm going to treat them. So I end up in a submissive position to people. So this person lives in a submitted position to other people while hoping they don't get hurt. All right, now that we've said that, I want to bring up the individual I spoke with today. And in their profile, when it came to the transpositions, now remember the transpositions are the bad things, all right? So are we overvaluing or are we undervaluing the bad things? This person undervalued bad things to the tune of a 12, all right? Now, the person I just walked you through, they're undervaluing bad things to the tune of a 1, all right? So that's not bad at all. That's actually a really good score. But this person today undervalued bad things to the tune of a 1. What does that mean? It means when they see bad things, they ignore it. They overlook it. They diminish it. They make it less bad. Okay? They see bad things as less bad because they undervalue bad things. So I looked at this profile and there was a lot of stuff here. And even now, I'm not mentioning any names. You have no idea who I'm talking about in this world. And I already am feeling in my chest, just by going this far, an absolute sense of betrayal. Now, this is because I have strong intrinsic valuation myself. And so even though you know nothing, I feel like I'm betraying this person by talking about them. Okay? I'm letting you into my world, how I'm thinking and how I'm feeling. But I'm trying to use this person as a teaching lesson for you, because you could be doing the same thing. Some of you listening might struggle with this same thing, where you undervalue character flaws. Now, if you think a bad dog isn't bad, or you pretend a bad dog isn't bad, you can get bitten. All right? You need to know that. This person married a person a year ago, a little over a year ago, had seen some situations where there were behaviors that looked bad, not good, and they chose to overlook it. Now, why would they do that? Well, their attention is elsewhere. Okay? Where's their attention? In fixing. Their attention was in the systemic valuation, which is how things ought to be. So they saw these traits, a few little traits that were a little bit red flagged. It was a little red flag. What the heck is that? They overlooked it because they're a fixer, and they were thinking how things ought to be. So it ought to be like this. I don't see it that way. Well, maybe I can influence this person and fix it later, right? That happened. Now, I want to stop right here and jump to this person's self-esteem score. So if a 1 is crystal clear clarity when it comes to how clearly I can see my own value, my own personal intrinsic worth, and a number 8 is really good clarity. A number 14 is okay. It's considered good. It's okay, but it's starting to get a little cloudy. A 15 is cloudy. So when it comes to looking at my own value, I'm kind of clouded. I see that, yeah, I know I'm worth something. I'm not dumb. I know I have worth as a human being. But, I don't want to think about it that much. Neither here nor there, maybe, right? Well, what if it's a 16, a 17, an 18? Okay, now we're getting to where I'm really not seeing my value as a person. So you might say, wow, you're really good at fill in the blank, right? And I'm thinking, oh, really? You think so? Because I don't see my value. Well, how bad can this get? Well, our algorithm will take you all the way up to a 23. Okay, 23 is transitional, okay, which means your windshield is covered in a tarp. You can't see anything. So if somebody comes in at a 23 when it comes to their own value, that's unconventional. And that means when you tell me I'm amazing, I don't believe you. Okay? Period. Or I can't see it. That's what it means. This person came in at, you ready? A 31. A 31 on perceiving their own intrinsic worth. A 31. Okay. Where was their attention score? So what's their brain bias? Now, if I can't, excuse me, I got freaking burping in this thing. If I can't see my own worth, then I'm stuck with relying on what I think. Okay, what do I already believe? What are beliefs? I've talked about this before, not at super length, but at some length on the podcast. So if you're hearing this for the first time, go back and find it. It's in there. But I talk about beliefs. What are beliefs? Beliefs are relegated for what you don't actually know. If I don't know something, I got to rely on my belief system. All right? If you look at me and I show up wearing tennis shoes, do you know I'm wearing tennis shoes? Or do you believe I'm wearing tennis shoes? I believe those are tennis shoes. We would never say that. We'd be saying, those are tennis shoes. I know they're tennis shoes. I know what tennis shoes look like. I know what tennis shoes feel like. I own several pairs of tennis shoes. I can go online and look up the word tennis shoe, get a bunch of images, and they're going to look like what you're wearing, right? We know what tennis shoes are. So I don't have to believe you're wearing tennis shoes, right? I know you're wearing tennis shoes. But if my friend dies, I might believe they're going to heaven, right? Because I, quote, believe in heaven, right? But I don't know there's a heaven, right? I believe there is. It's a choice I'm making, but I don't really know. So that becomes a belief, all right? We all have beliefs. Beliefs are something we've chosen to invest in without knowing what we're actually investing in. That's what beliefs are. All right? Now, when I can't see or I don't perceive or I don't understand, or I'm having trouble getting a handle on my own personal sense of self-value, self-worth in the world, I'm going to rely on what I believe about myself, right? Because I can't see it. I can't see the value. So I'm stuck with not knowing. So if I'm thinking anything, it's a belief, right? What was this person's belief when it came to their value? 90% negative. All right. Now, is this person really that bad? No, but they believe they are. You may know this person and say, dude, you're a really great person, but they don't feel great. They believe they're not because they cannot see the greatness you see. Now, if your intrinsic valuation of other people, which is called empathy, is crystal clear, this is going to be a very frustrating friend for you to have, because every time you tell them they're great at something, they don't believe it. Every time you try to encourage them, think of encouragement like filling up the pool. The next day, the pool's empty and you got to fill it again. It's really frustrating. So this person, let me go back to what I said earlier. I know this could be complex for you, but I need you to bear with me. Remember in the beginning, this person undervalues what's bad about their mate or about anyone. They undervalue. Oh, dang it. What is that? I'm going to have to let that ring because I'm not in a position to stop it, and I'm not going to shut this off and try to edit all this out. I don't have the time. Anyway, it's kind of after hours anyway, so I'm letting that go. Now I'm distracted, so you can see squirrel, right? Okay, that's gonna quit in a second. Okay, you see how I'm struggling? I'm struggling to talk because part of my brain is frustrated with the ring. Like, I'm thinking the ring is distracting you. It's not about distracting me because of my empathy score is high. So that whole time that phone was ringing, I had over-attentive concern for you listening to this podcast and hearing that ring in the background. My self-esteem's not that hot, right? So I'm thinking, are you going to think I'm an imbecile for allowing that ring to go onto the podcast and distracting you? This is what my brain's running. I know how all this works. So the reason why I got stuck and couldn't really keep speaking is because I got distracted with my attention levels. Everybody does this all the time, but when you know exactly what's going on, you can talk about it and you can do a lot with it, and it's very fantastic. Okay, let's get back to what was going on before we went through that life lesson. All right, so this individual undervalues the bad, and he, when it comes to his own self-esteem, he undervalues the good. He undervalues the good. He doesn't see it as good as it actually is. Okay, so back to the day when he started noticing some weird behavior that didn't look good. It looked kind of bad, and then chose to overlook it. Why would he do that? What would be a compelling force within this person to make them do that? His self-esteem is part of this equation. Okay, how is it part of the equation? Well, he's settling for what he can get, not fighting for what he wants in the relationship. Why? He's not worth it. Oh my, did you just feel that like I just did? Did you get that like right in the solar plexus? He sees some bad in a person and does nothing. He overlooks it. He sees a character flaw, overlooks it. Why? when he thinks about maybe doing something about it, bringing it up, he doesn't feel a strong enough sense of self-worth to believe that he's in a good enough position or is good enough as a person to make that kind of a judgment. So he let it go. Now, let's bring this up to a year. They get married. Within, I believe it was within weeks of the marriage, an incident happened involving one of his kids. Now, he's got some children from a prior marriage and they're young. What happened was, when people have lower intrinsic self-value and they have, they're undervaluing bad things in people and overvaluing good things in people, let's say, then they see the value in other people sooner than they see it in themselves. And they also overlook the flaws in other people as a caveat, all right? That's just a sidecar to this motorcycle. But when this individual did or said something that was hurtful to one of the kids, boom, this guy woke up. He came alive and he took a stand, right? Why? Well, because he does care, and he has a great care and concern for innocent people more than he has a great care and concern for himself. And when he saw that, he did something. Now, when he did something, it all went to hell. And now he calls me, not because of any of that. I believe he just heard me somewhere, heard of me or something. I didn't get that information, but what he did was he wanted to take a personal inventory and see what was going on. And when I got him on the phone, I didn't even look at his graphs until I had him on the phone. I opened him up and my heart just sank. I just said to him, I said, dude, I feel like crawling through the phone and giving you a hug right now. Like that, I just said that. It just came out. And he was like, wow, I really appreciate you saying that. Like, I think he knew it was coming. I said, dude, I don't know what's going on, but it's not good. It is not good at all. Anyway, we had an hour and a half conversation there, and oh my God, I love this guy, and he's just in this position. It's going to work out, but the point I wanted to make is this. What are you doing? How are you valuing people, things, ideas about people and things? Is your sense of valuation working for you or against you? Okay. I had a little exchange on Facebook. I don't know what happened. Oh, I posted something about domestic violence against women. It's terrible. It's like one of the number one issues among women on the planet right now, right? And I talked about, the low self-worth thing. I mean, who would hook up with a sociopath? Well, someone who doesn't believe the best about themselves. So instead of fighting for what they want, when it comes to a relationship, they settle for what they can get. That's the digs, man. And it's sad, it's bad, but that's what's happening. If you're a woman that the first time somebody lays a hand on you, you look at them and say, you touch me again, I break you face, all right? You don't touch me like that again, or we're done, right? But if you don't care about yourself, you don't love yourself, you know what your brain does? You better not touch that because you might not get yourself another man. This is it. You better make this work because you ain't worth a shit and you can't get anybody else. So you better make this work. This is what the annoying cricket's saying on your shoulder. So what do? They stick it out, right? Until when? Sometimes until they're dead. Because sociopaths don't care about people, all right? It's all direct and control and agree or disagree, but it's never understand. And when it comes to relationships. So anyway, I just pointed out some things and it ended up kind of going sideways because they're like, oh, you're blaming the victim. And, I just wanted to scream, right? Are you kidding me? I spend every day for 16 years helping people and you're calling me a victim blamer? Get a life. I was so pissed that they just jumped right into gender identification and victimization and all this crap that's real popular right now. The problem is if you're doing that, you're going to miss the fix, and this isn't going to get fixed. 84% of the population's self-esteem is in the toilet, and I don't know why that is, but I know it is, and it's a problem. And if your self-esteem isn't high enough, you're going to make bad decisions when it comes to relationships. It's just the way it works. So I'm saying that with, I guess maybe compassionate indignation, if you want to call it something. But I get really upset at things like this. The truth isn't fun. It's not exciting. Knowing about myself and some of my weaknesses and some of the things that get in my way, like feeling like because the phone's ringing in the background, nobody's going to like my podcast anymore. That's true to life. That's real. That happens to a lot of people. It happens to me. I happen to know what's going on and I can just look at the cricket on my shoulder and blow it off, right? It's no big deal. But not everybody can do that. So what is the takeaway for this? What can you do? Where are you? When you're relating with other people, how are you doing that? What kind of evaluation are you bringing to the table? Are you looking for what's missing in people? Are you looking for what's wrong with people? What's your concept of person? What's your concept of a good person? All right? Is it unconventional? Right? It could be. Can you clearly see people? No. This individual's clarity level that I'm talking about today, was an 18. It was an 18 and it was unconventional. So when he's looking at people, he can't see what's right or wrong. He can't see it at all. So he's stuck with what he thinks. Okay? And so because he can't see, he has poor people clarity. He is able to overlook everything that's wrong with certain people. And I asked him about it. So how's this working out in your life as a whole? He goes, I have a lot of problems with this. I said, I can see why, right? How do we fix that, right? Well, you need help. Now, that's a whole nother podcast to get into that. But what I want you to do, I want you to listen to the things I'm saying and find out where you're at. What is it that you can acknowledge about yourself that might not be working for you? And can you do something about that? Well, I don't know what to do. Well, you have a phone, don't you? Right? So, you have friends that care about you, right? You need to open these things up and make them a part of your conversation. That's the biggest problem with people is silence. All right? When I started pushing with this individual, I said, do you have any friends? Yes. Do you have people that really, really know you and care about you? Yes. Have you ever brought this up? No. The answer was no. Okay? So no communication. How do I know if you need help if you don't tell me? Okay? There's a big problem in the world with that. People just hold their cards close. They don't say anything. They try to work it out, right? They don't want to be seen as needy. They don't want to be seen or thought of as stupid, all right? They don't want to do this. But if you want to be the best version of you possible, it's time to admit you made a stupid decision if you made one. That's the only way out of doing it again. You have to come to terms with who you are, and you have to really come to terms with who you're not. Knowing who you are, all right, that's fine. Knowing who you're not, that's the key to all of your future success. Because now you're not doing, saying, and involving yourselves in situations where you don't have the attention necessary to make them work well. You need help and you got to get it fixed. So let me end with that, saying that one more time. Knowing who you are is great. Knowing who you're not is even greater. So take inventory, and if you see some things that aren't working for you, you need to bring those up and open the film in your camera and expose it to the light and kill it. And then expose that and then get that thing out. And then you can start working on it. Until then, it'll simply hold you hostage and nobody will know it. Well, that's it for today. I know that was a little winded, and I hope you're getting something out of this. I want you to, if you haven't listened to the rest of these, there's 14 podcasts in here right now. I'm going to keep doing these. And as things arise and as I'm working with people and I see situations and circumstances that I think bear repeating, I'm going to bring them up on the casts to help you with your own life. Thanks for listening. This is Steve Sisler. I'm signing off, and you've been listening to Behavioral Insights.